Hey everybody, this is Robert from Black Belt Gaming, continuing my Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 1st Edition series. And we're approaching Halloween, so I thought it would be a great time to talk about vampires. Vampires are rarely encountered, and if you want a random number to appear, the Monster Manual in 1st Edition recommends between 1 and 4. They have a low armor class, which is good for old school Dungeons & Dragons. So an armor class of 1. If you kind of turned that around to the more modern editions, that would, where the higher armor class is better, that would mean that you basically have to roll, or he would have an armor class of about a 19. Hit dice for the vampire is 8 plus 3. So roll the D8 8 times and then add 3 to the result. 25% chance that they're in their lair, and vampires have 1 attack. This attack does 5 to 10 damage, and there are some special attacks and special defenses that need to be taken into consideration. Well, vampires are quite strong. They're considered to have exceptional strength, like some fighters can have. In fact, they're considered to have a strength of 18 with a percentage of 76. If a vampire scores a hit, there is a powerful negative force that will drain 2 life energy levels from the victim. And those characters will lose the corresponding hit dice, the ability level, the attack level, all of those things. All those benefits. They basically lose 2 levels if they're hit by the vampire. And back in the old days, there was no saving throw against that. You were in bad shape if one of these guys, one of these powerful undead, hit you. Vampires are only affected by magical weapons. They regenerate damage at 3 hit points per round. And if they are brought to 0 hit points in combat, it's not killed. The vampire is not killed, but it is forced into its gas-like form. It's maybe turning into mist or something. And they attempt to return to their coffin and rest and reform their body. Spells like sleep, charm, and hold spells don't affect the vampire. Poison doesn't do any good. Paralysis doesn't do any good. And they only take about half damage from spells based on cold or electricity. A vampire can also assume this gas-like form at will. They can do that at any time they want to, and I do have a funny story about that. I'll get to it in just a minute. Likewise, they can shape change into a large bat whenever they desire, and they can fly, of course, in that form. If the vampire gazes into a person's eye, the vampire will have basically the same effect as a charm spell, and the victim will subtract 2 from the saving throw versus magic, so could be a problem there. Kind of like some other creatures, if you determine, is he looking into my eyes? Did I avert my eyes? It can either be automatic. It's kind of up to the DM to adjudicate this. You might want to give some sort of ability check to see if he can look away in time, but the saving throw is basically what you need to resist this magical gaze. So that alone is good enough, but if you want to give characters just an extra chance to look away, you can consider that. All vampires have the ability to summon creatures to aid them. It could be rats or bats. Sometimes they might even have, well, it takes them a little while to get there, so they might even have wolves come, but it might take anywhere from 2 to 12 rounds before they arrive. Vampires try to stay away from strong garlic. So if you have some garlic, you can pull out. This will cause the vampire to hesitate between 1 and 4 rounds. And they also don't like mirrors or holy symbols, lawful good holy symbols. These will keep the vampire back. Especially, you need to keep it between yourself and the vampire. And it said here in the monster manual, such items like the holy symbol need to be presented boldly. The vampire will try to maneuver around it, or it will try to have one of its minions do something about the symbol or the mirror. Vampires can be killed. They're hard to kill, but they can be killed. Sunlight will kill them. Running water can kill them. They'll start losing hit points, basically a third of their hit points per round when they're in running water. A wooden stake driven through its heart will do the job, but the stake needs to remain in there. To make sure the vampire's dead, you cut off its head and put holy wafers in its mouth. Holy water damages vampires, 2 to 7 hit points of damage per vial. And any human or humanoid drained of all life energy by a vampire becomes a vampire itself in control. They're under the control of its slayer. So let's say, for example, this vampire drains all the levels from your character. You could end up being a vampire under its control. And there's a little more detail in the monster manual about how that works. There are some additional details here. Vampires of the Eastern world are invisible. You can make it harder for characters to see them and spot them and find them. And let's see, these vampires cannot charm, however, nor do they have the power to assume a gas-like form at will. Speaking of that, started playing Dungeons and Dragons a long time ago, and eventually started to have some experiences when my friends asked me to be a dungeon master. And they had some powerful characters, and I didn't. I was still rather new to the game. But I liked telling stories, and I thought it would be neat to put some monsters in there that would challenge my friends' characters. Most of the other players were about my age. However, some of them were about 4 years older than I was. So some of them knew how to manipulate me a little bit on the rules. So I started this vampire encounter. And there was one guy in particular. I'm sure he's not watching this. This has been so many years ago. But he had a, what do you call it now? A munchkin? He had a really overpowered character. And he was facing off against this this vampire, and they were just taking him down. As the DM, I was doing pretty well against doing some damage to the lesser powered player characters. But eventually they brought Dracula down to the point where he was wanting to turn into this mist and try to escape. So I was saying that that's what happened. And then, like I said, I think I was about 12 years old. And this kid that we were playing with, he was like 16. He said that he was going to pull out his water skin and spray water onto the mist, and that would turn the Count Dracula, or turn the vampire back into his human-like form. And I said, "What?" And he said, "Oh yeah, if you throw water on a gas, it will cancel it." And I was like, okay. And so you just imagine that the vampire's worst or greatest fear would be somebody with a water gun. So I know it talked about running water doing damage, but it wasn't that. It was just that this was going to cancel his gas-like form, his mist form. So these guys were chasing this mist through the castle, spraying water on it, having having the vampire reappear, and then they'd all start kind of beat on him and kick on him and try to take him out completely. And this went on for a while until I eventually just said, okay, you killed him. It was quite pathetic. So, you know, learning how to be a good dungeon master takes some time and experience, especially when you're playing some of the old school games where it was more of an art form and not so clearly defined in all the rules. So some bad judgments there on my part back when I was a kid, allowing my vampire to be bullied like that. But there you go. It's a fun memory nevertheless. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I will catch you for some more AD&D First Edition soon.